Oh, I'm just a little black rain cloud hovering under the honey tree. Oh, I'm just a little black rain cloud. Pay no attention to me. Dude, I grew up with that movie. It was the
And
best.
that's our podcast for tonight. Thanks everyone
Yeah.
for listening.
And Waples will be trying out for American Idol next season. Anyway,
I'm going to go out there full Pooh Bear and see what happens.
He'd do well. I believe in him.
No, I cannot sing.
What?
But can you run tabletop role-playing games? Because we are the Grumpy Dungeon Masters.
Hey, good segue. I like that.
That's right. Got to get the intro in. So I'm Jay. I'm joined with my co-hosts, Christopher, Kristian, and Dan. Say hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hello there.
Hi, guys. Fuck you.
Whoa, language.
Whoa, charging.
Yeah, it's too early. It's too early for that language.
I'm sorry.
So just a few moments ago, I sent you guys a picture in the in our podcast chat group. Have you ever? It's a Mind Flayer, doing what Mind Flayers do to some guy. Have you ever actually seen a picture of a Mind Flayer's legs before?
No.
Yeah, because this Mind Flayer is like wearing shorts or something. I think he has on like basketball shorts.
Well, first off, like he had to get out of bed, and some people wear the most comfortable sleep clothes, and basketball shorts are known to be very comfortable. So,
oh yeah,
it makes sense.
Makes sense. But they have those weird knees, like the reverse knee. I don't know what the hell you call that, but it's like animal knees.
Alien knees?
Yeah, I guess.
I'm sure there's a
better
term for it.
That's an option.
Well, I mean, they have legs. They're just usually hidden by robes.
I mean, well,
you do see their legs in Baldur's Gate 3 quite often.
Oh, do you? Okay, well, that picture
they do transform quite frequently.
And they're not like that, I don't think. Or maybe I just don't remember because I'm not generally...
Where did you drop this?
Because with the weird tentacle head and the mind playing going on, its legs are generally not the thing that I'm most concerned about.
So that picture is from Dragon Magazine number 78, October 1983. So that's what they look like. That's the real Mind Flayers.
Yeah,
so the full Ithalid image that they have on the Baldur's Gate 3 wiki that shows the full model of you as a player character transformed into an Ithalid. Spoilers. Yeah. You have human legs, like ankles, knees. You don't have that weird double knee joint like dogs have and other animals have. But who's to say that Ithalids don't have that in some variation, some way? I'm actually quite surprised you brought this up because that was my only topic that I had, and really a topic I can bring much into. Have you guys ever heard of the Ithalid Time War?
You mean the Illithid Time War?
Yes.
No.
All right. So there was a conspiracy theory made up about a year or so ago where the Illithids are actually from the distant far future and a time where they basically quote unquote won, and they've converted all of the known universe to Illithids, and the Elder Brain controls all their one giant hive mind throughout the universe. And in order to make that happen, because they exist in the Astral Sea, and time is kind of like an abstract thing out there in the Astral Sea, they send all their people back in time to basically make sure the plan actually goes through and is correct. And there's a couple of videos about it, and I was traveling this weekend, so I found a video on it that I saved in my YouTube watch list that I have to watch and see if it has any good valid data. The small amount that I do know is that when this guy came up with this initial conspiracy theory, people started finding hints and clues all the way back to like first and second edition that actually did kind of give credence to this idea that the Illithids are from a future time where they won and are actually just trying to make that kind of future happen. So I was curious if you guys ever heard of it.
I feel like you're listening to some D&D conspiracy theorist.
I did say it was a conspiracy, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go out and say that time travel is stupid. It has always been stupid. And I feel like this is just some nonsense some guys started like putting together on his weird conspiracy board, and he's like, "Yeah, man, listen to me, I got it. I finally cracked it. I know what they're up to."
Yeah, if you look at this backwards, and what Gygax actually meant by this was that. Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, when you need content for your YouTube channel, you come up with ideas like this and just run with them, because if nothing else, it's fun.
Yeah, if nothing else, it's fun. I've always been a big fan of conspiracies. The crazier, the better. Like the Egyptian pyramids are actually alien ships that have infinite power. Nibiru, Planet X. Spoilers. That's pretty much my story for my homebrew campaign. Like
is this
I
the
like
guy
these
that was taking on the conspiracy that the sun is not as hot as we say it is by YouTube, by videoing himself taking one of those thermometers that you hold up to your forehead and just pointing it at the sun to record the temperature and being like, "See, that's how hot it is."
That totally works. That's exactly how that works.
That's called science.
Yes.
That is the level of veracity I give this Mind Flayer future time travel nonsense.
And that is fair. That is fair for you to like balk at it, and most likely that's what is true. But I do believe that there's a lot of good story potential there. You can do a lot of creative, fun, wacky things.
So here's a story somebody could run. That is true.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. First off, we'd need to know who actually created the idea of the Mind Flayers. Probably Gygax or somebody very close to him, I would assume. And then you have to. I mean, obviously, if it was Gygax or any of a lot of those people, you just can't ask them anymore. So the whole thing would be a moot point and just not real. If they are time travelers,
listen. I got to pause.
All right.
You're right. Gygax did create them. However, we do know two of his kids. We could just ask them. I bet you Luke.
I mean,
I'm just saying.
You're not wrong, but I don't know that they would even know what he had in store or planned for them originally. All that being said, if there is no intention to ever write it into an official story via WotC at this point, as them being time travelers, then it's just made up more so than it already is.
Yeah.
And so I will
going back to the creators, though, like half of the time when they would create these monsters, they didn't have any lore attached to them. There was no grand plan. It was just a monster for you to go and kill in a dungeon. And
it's terrifying.
Yeah, a terrifying brain-sucking monster. No save. Your brain just got sucked out of your head. Goodbye. Make a new character.
But I do like the idea that I granted time travel stories are hardly ever done well, and when they are done well, they're still kind of done flakily. Like I can think of like very few movies other than like Star Trek. I can think of very few movies that did it really well, was very, very successful with it. But if you just take the aspect of them as just being, this is the future that they come from, and they're here to ensure that happens, you can add a lot of just like good mystery to that. But you start falling into these weird states of, how did the Githyanki tie into all that? Are the Githyanki now the species that's kind of like the homogenation of every species all into one? And they came back with the Ithlids. It kind of goes crazy. And
they're just trying to save some whales, man.
All right. So actually, let me go ahead and nip this in the bud here. One, Gygax definitely had nothing to do with any of this time travel bullshit. I don't think that at all. Jay's absolutely right that it was a cool. Jay and Kristian were absolutely right that it's a cool monster that's a brain sucker that was really creepy looking. That he was inspired by a drawing that somebody had done on like an old sci-fi novel. Furthermore, the first time that what Chris is talking about was actually mentioned is back in 2005 in the Book of Aberrations, the Lord of Madness, the Book of Aberrations by WotC, by James Jacobs and Richard Baker. That was April 2005, and and I quote: Some sages theorized that the Mind Flayers were aliens from an unimaginably distant future who had come back in time to prevent their extinction from being brought upon by the end of the universe. By the use of a powerful spell, they sent their great spell-jamming fleet back in time, arriving at a different time that then allowed them to... Hold on a second. Arriving at a different time periods in different crystal spheres and reestablishing their empires. This interpretation was consistent with the fact that Abelis, even with their perfect racial memories, do not remember the beginnings of the Illithid race. Others believe because of the advanced technology of ships, Illithids were a cursed inbred mutant offspring of humans from an ancient and distant crystal sphere known as cluster space, forced to live in the underground depths of their world, honing their mental skills and experimenting with psionic powers for ages until the hate of their further oppressors caused them to seek vengeance and set out to conquer the universe. And then it keeps on going through about 6 different origin myths that go through different different writings of who did what until you get through 5th edition and you start doing the origins in the far realms and then their great empire in the inner realms and inner planes and so on and so forth. So there's other books that that cover it, and books on the Blood War. There's books on let's see here, books on a book called the Plane Treaders Primer. But somebody we could actually possibly ask would be Jeff Grubb.
Yeah.
Jeff Grubb wrote Spelljammer, and if anybody knows anything, he might.
Yeah. We'll have to talk to him at some point for sure. Keith Baker as well is around, and he's one of the writers. So somebody else we might want to try to get a hold of at some point. It's funny. It's funny. We weren't planning to do an ecology of the Mind Flayer, but somehow we just ended up here.
Yeah, but I mean, Waples and I met Jeff Grubb when we were at GaryCon, and he did. I'm pretty sure Waples handed him some swag, and he handed us some other swag in return to listen to a couple of podcasts. And maybe we can get him on. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great idea.
I'd love to actually pick his brain just for that and all the other stuff he wrote in the 80s and 90s for TSR.
Yeah. And like I said, it's just so much. I think there's a lot of good story potential there, and I think it would be very interesting to kind of see how that actually would work. And like I said, I'm not a fan of time travel stories, but things coming from the far future that get messed up, and
I mean, I'm with Kristian. Time travel ends up being stupid because it never seems to be done right, and But then again, who's to say how it is supposed to be done right necessarily? There's a way that feels right when time travel is done. But as far as time travel goes, as far as if there's anybody that's going to do it, weird alien race would probably be the likely candidates.
Yeah,
but
I do like the Terminator time travel where like the future's always going to happen. Just keep delaying it a little bit, and it keeps changing because they keep delaying it. It gets worse and worse and worse. That's kind of how I figured the Illithid future is. They sent back their guys. They are getting there, but it's just getting worse and worse in the future. And eventually they just may lose.
Yeah, I'm generally pretty happy with just what you had said, where things are at right now. With the 2005, that's when this thing sort of first popped up idea. And it was very much some sages think this might be the case. That's what you want in your tabletop role-playing game. You don't want a definitive this is the thing.
I really that's you leave it vague. That because in the origin stories there's 4 different origin myths that are there, and obviously none of them are confirmed in any of the books. So the only people who know would be the people who wrote it, and honestly I bet you they probably wrote it intentionally vague because they never really wanted to define it.
Yeah,
they're supposed to be mysterious alien species, and that's awesome.
That you can have sex with
weird backwards legs.
All right.
Well, next topic, since he had to go there. Hey, Kristian, you ready to talk about Dragonbane?
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about Dragonbane.
Dragonbane, me daddy.
All right, so sell me on Dragonbane, because I know nothing about the system. I only very, very briefly looked through the book. I saw that it was all of the same standard D&D type classes, and I just sort of moved on. So sell me on it.
Okay, well, it is
you have 15 words.
No, I don't care. It is a fantasy adventure game, so it is a D&D like. It's going to do the same kind of stories that lots of other fantasy adventure games do. It actually started as an offshoot of back in 1982 as an offshoot of Chaosium's basic role-playing system when it first started, because the company that started it, Target Games, was a Swedish company that was importing war games to Sweden. And so one of their founders moved over to the U.S. so they could find games and then import them to Sweden to sell them to Swedish wargamers. And eventually found role-playing games and started saying, "Oh, well, if we could translate these to Swedish, we could start selling these too."
Can I just take a quick aside here? Why are the Swedish people the best war gamers ever, given they're neutral in most conflicts throughout history?
They're Vikings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
right.
Yeah.
I'm going to ignore that question and keep going. But they went through. They created several editions of it's what they called. And I'm going to butcher this because I do not speak the language, but Drakar Ok Damoner, which is dragons and demons.
Okay.
Was there D&D dragons and demons?
Yeah. Okay.
So eventually it passed hands several times. Target Games went out of run into financial trouble. Paradox, the same people that acquired White Wolf, actually acquired the licenses for this as well and held on to it for a little while. They licensed it out to another company to make games for it, and then eventually sold the license in 2021 to Free League. And Free League, after a bunch of English language fans yelled at them and begged them to please did it in English, decided to see how much taste there was for this game in English and did a Kickstarter for Dragonbane, the English language version of this. And it did quite well. So, but yeah, it's gone back to 1982. Has been running, and for a lot of people, there was somebody I ran into somewhere in the Shadow Dark Discord, I think, that said that they, for the longest time, didn't know what D&D was, because to them it was dragons and demons. This is what they thought D&D was. They had no idea that there was a whole other English D&D game that was different.
That's pretty cool.
But given it the current edition of this, some of the stuff comes from its long history, but the current edition, it is a classless and levelless game. The things that you saw
it looked like it had classes.
It does not. The thing what you saw is kind of like your background. It's what they call a profession. It's what you did before you were an adventurer. And it just kind of tells you where a lot of your starting skills are going to come from and what your starting heroic ability is going to be. But as you continue the game and do downtime and gain experience, or you don't really gain experience, the way they advance things is a little bit different. But when it comes to advancing your character, it is free form, and that you can kind of pick what skills you want to learn and where you want to try to improve as you would, and you're not bound by a specific class as to what you can or cannot do. It is a kind of low magic game. There's only one starting profession that gets to know magic, and then anybody could potentially learn it, but learning that is not easy, and the way you learn when you first start learning magic is your skill will be very low, so you won't be very good at it. But I do think it's I like that it's pretty kind of low fantasy, very well balanced. Your hit points equal your constitution score.
Oh, yeah, it's straightforward.
Yeah, and your willpower, which is what powers your heroic abilities and any magic you might have, is equal to your wisdom score, or willpower, I think they use.
So does it use the normal 6 stats that you'd find in
normal
D&D?
6 stats? It's going to use the same 6 stats that you're familiar with. You have a kin, and then you have a profession, and then you choose your skills based off of So your skills are your starting attributes are strength, constitution, it's agility instead of dexterity, same thing. Intelligence, willpower instead of wisdom, same thing, and charisma.
Mm-hmm.
Akin gives you a unique ability. I think dwarves are one of my favorite versions of dwarves. Their akin ability is called Unforgiving, which they can activate anytime somebody that has harmed them in the past, and there is no time limit on this. And it encourages you to keep track of everyone that has ever harmed you.
Define harmed you.
Any slight.
caused you damage, caused you actual damage.
Physical
Oh,
damage,
okay.
not emotional damage.
Emotional damage.
So if they scuff my new Nikes, I can hold this against them.
No,
Only
that's
your-
not.
only-
They have
only
to
if it's
deal
your
you at least
Pumas.
1 point. They must deal at least 1 point of damage to you.
Oh, that sucks.
It was mental damage.
But in that point, you can spend your ability to gain a boon on your attack rolls against that person.
That's awesome.
But that is there. There's just like
I mean,
keep a
yeah,
list of everyone
that's-
that's ever harmed you, and then get better at fighting them.
Yeah.
It is a D20 roll under system. So your
Woo.
stats you roll under, so every point of your stat matters. You won't roll your stats a whole lot. Everything uses a skill, and everything in the game is a skill. Like your weapon skill is what you use to attack with. Your magic skill is what you use to cast spells with. Your evade skill determines how well you can get out of the way of things. So pretty much everything is a skill, and then your skill rating is going to be what you roll against or roll under to try to see how well you do at things.
It's so much easier doing it that way.
Yeah, they give you a derived roll for your starting trained skills, and they actually make age and some of the things like that kind of count into it. So, for example, if you are young, you have less skills, but you get bonuses to your strength and agility.
Sure. Yeah.
If
Your
you are
con's higher.
old,
Your wisdom is shit, though.
if you're old, you get bonuses to your wisdom, intelligence, and penalties to your strength, con, and agility. But you also get more skills that you're trained in.
Yep.
Old
They
skill
don't
monkey.
exactly, they don't exactly define ages. They're like, yeah, the number doesn't matter. Just you're old for whatever your kin is.
Yeah.
You're just old.
You're just old. All old is the same.
Yeah. If I like current D&D does not even care about age whatsoever. I always liked in the earlier editions, as you got older, your physical stats went down, your mental stats went up, because that's really kind of what happens.
Yeah, I like that it does that. So each of your professions, and there's a bunch of different professions, give you a starting what they call heroic ability. And all heroic abilities and magic cost willpower to use, and that's kind of the balancing factor. Is like, yeah, spellcasters have their magic, but everyone else also has different heroic abilities that they can do, and they can spend their willpower on. Armor is damage reduction. It does not add to your armor class.
Classic. Yeah.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, it is sort of like the Morkborgs in that your monsters are going to hit you unless you evade.
So can you evade like every attack? Is there an evasion roll when they attack you?
So the way they do that is interesting. So your initiative is determined by either they do it by drawing cards, where you draw a card that is between 1 through 10. They give you in the starter set. They give you a deck. They also say you can just use a deck of cards. Just take out everything that is not an ace through a 10.
Yep.
And then you draw cards. There are certain abilities, like the fighter background or profession has a veteran ability that allows you to draw 2 cards and choose which one you want to keep.
Okay.
And then you start from 1 and go to 10, with 1 being the lowest initiative, going first, and 10 being the worst. And
This
when you
reminds me
go,
of Deadlands. I wonder if they pulled that from that.
It's very similar, yeah.
well, maybe. I don't know how old Deadlands is, but
Deadlands,
Not that old. It's
not
90s.
82, but
90s.
yeah.
They
But,
said not that old, guys, and then said in the 90s. You know,
Yeah,
the
but-
previous century.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you but when you act, you can choose to do what you can choose to take your action and go, or you can wait. And when you wait, you just exchange initiative cards with someone else. And there's no like resisting this. You just change initiative cards with
Oh.
someone.
Okay.
The key to waiting is because when you are attacked, you can expend your initiative card to try to evade or parry. But if you've already acted, unless you have a heroic ability that allows you to do that outside of your action, you are going to get hit.
So evasion is a very strategic and tactical thing. The initiative system is very strategic in this regard.
Yes, it is. There's a little more interplay in the combat here of when do I want to go? Do I want to coordinate with my allies of, hey, I'm going to get in front of the thing and try to tank it and evade. You guys try to hit it. So there's a little more tactical play here. This is a little more crunchy than like BX and Retro Clones and Shadow Dark and games along that nature. There's a little more interplay. There's a little more tactical nature to making decisions there. And there's different heroic abilities you could get that can augment different sections of the combat. There's things that can allow you, draw more initiative cards. There's things that you could draw where you can spend your willpower to evade outside of your turn. And you can do it more than once as long as you have the willpower to spend on it.
Okay.
But you could do that, but I think it's 3 willpower points. So you can see how even if you have a decent willpower, do that a few times in a combat, you're out of gas real quick.
And I'm assuming that those don't come back super quickly.
The way they do rests. They do you can do a round rest, which is you just take a quick breather for a minute and you get a little bit of stuff back, not much. You can take what they call a stretch rest, which is you take 15 minutes and chill out and you get a little bit of HP and a little bit of willpower back, but not much. Or you take a whole shift rest, and they limit the amount. You can take 1 round rest and 1 stretch rest every shift before you have to rest. To take a shift rest, you have to have rations, or else you start suffering penalties. Like Shadow Dark and some other games, no one sees in the dark, so having light is important.
Very nice.
They make it very different differentiation between monsters and NPCs. Like NPCs kind of attack and act like your characters. They're people that you can talk to and stuff. Monsters have an interesting thing where one of the things they do to balance how tough they are is they have a ferocity level. And the ferocity level determines how many initiative cards that monster pulls, and then they act on each one of those cards.
There you go. That's how you handle that issue.
They sold legendary actions a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they also have things like you cannot, most of the time, unless it says otherwise, you can't parry a monster attack. You can try to evade, but there is no parrying it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then they provide you for each monster a monster attacks table. They say you can choose a monster attack from that table, or you can just roll a d6 and see which attack on the table it does.
Oh.
With the caveat is that a monster will never do the same attack twice in a row.
Oh, I got 1,000 yards of pain again. No.
Yeah. So there's a lot of cool stuff. It's what I wish D&D was. It is a really great system. If you want a little bit crunchier than like a retro clone or a BX, kind of like you want something where there is some tactical heft in decision making and combat of like who wants to move forward, who wants to hang back, do I want to switch initiatives, do we want to try to defend? So there's a lot of neat interplay to be there in combat, but still not being super long because nobody has a lot of hit points.
Yeah.
And so combat
It's
is
usually short and brutal combats.
short and brutal combats. There is stuff like your gear has a certain amount of durability where if you use it to parry, it can take
Nope.
damage and you can break your gear.
Nope. that part I'm just right out.
Yeah,
It's easy to. It's
a lot of bookkeeping that I don't feel is
it is.
necessary.
That's not one of the parts I love, but it's also easy to just ignore that and just
Yes,
not
that's
worry
what-
about
maybe
that.
only use it if you're doing like a Dark Sun world where everyone's using obsidian spears. or
Yeah,
something
and
that
the
makes
system. This is one of
sense.
those as I looked at that because I don't typically love that, but it also like there's no real breaking of the system if you don't use that.
Yeah.
Good.
When I said
Okay.
nope, I'm out. I didn't mean I'm out of the system. I mean I would never use that.
Yeah, I wouldn't implement that either. That's
But
Everything else
necessary.
about it sounds like it's right up my alley.
Honestly, it actually kind of seems to combine some of my favorite systems of all time, which is the skills of Rollmaster, but the simplicity of D&D.
yeah, it's they do. Each of the weapons will have things like a strength or agility requirement in order to use that weapon effectively.
Good.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they do. They have some interesting rules on dying where you can try to do a couple different things. You can try to heal someone. You can try to. So when you're down to 0, you make a death roll each turn, kind of like D&D. You're rolling against your con score. So
okay.
if you have a really good con, you have a better chance of being able to get up. When you do get up, you don't get a lot of stuff back. You just kind of you get a little bit back, but you could still be in a rough spot. But it does use the kind of D&D where you get I think it's 3 rolls.
Okay.
But you take damage, you have fail. It also has the different things of you can try to rally someone. By using a persuade roll, you essentially try to convince them, like, "Hey, man, rub some dirt on it and get up." They don't get any hit points back, but instead of being at disabled dying, they get back in the fight, and even though they're making death rolls still and trying to avoid dying, but I like that you can like get somebody up and you can still be in the fight, even if you're going to die in a few rounds.
So so you make a charisma roll, or do you make a persuasion skill roll?
You make a persuasion skill roll.
Okay,
and
there.
to roll against and they can even so they make a persuasion roll, which is against their persuasion talent. And it says you can even do it yourself, but you get a bane to try to rally yourself. And you can try if you wanted to be like, you know what, I'm going to try to talk myself.
Everyone's seen a movie where the hero trying to convince himself he's just got to do one more thing before he dies, and yeah, that makes sense. I could see
It's
that
just a
happen.
flesh wound.
Gotta
It's just a
overcome.
flesh wound.
Gotta overcome
And
the
for
inner
each-
bitch.
It's Arnold trying to defeat the Predator at the end of Predator. He's like, I'm near dead, but I'm going to take this guy with me.
Come on, come and get me.
They do have the
Do
instant
it.
death roll. If any
Do it.
single attack reduces you to negative amount, what would be negative your HP, your max HP, you're just dead. You're gone. It's time to make a new character.
Yeah, that's fair.
There are no raising from the dead spells in this game. So the person that is dead is dead.
Making me like it a lot more.
They do have rules for injuries. For if you do go to 0 HP, you can come away with an injury that takes time to heal, some downtime, some rest. So yeah, I find this like if I did not want to run Shadow Dark, I wanted something that was a little more crunchy and had a little more kind of to build. If you want a thing where you can build a character, have a little more crunch in your combat, but still don't want the combat simulator of 5th edition or Pathfinder kind of game.
Right.
Dragonbane has building a character without being a superhero, with every combat still being dangerous, and with it still being a kind of old school style of let's explore, let's try to talk our way out of situations, let's fight when we've got the upper hand. Magic does have mishap things, so magic is still dangerous.
Yeah.
When you have to roll to see if you cast your spell, it is a roll to cast. Where you're rolling under whatever your skill. It does spell schools. So when you learn magic, you're going to learn the skill for a particular school. And the ones in the core book are animism, mentalism, and elementalism.
Okay.
So like if you learn animism, you learn that skill and you can cast those spells. And then they also have like a general magic that has some basic like defense, detect magic, and that kind of things. And then
I mean, just the spell schools again sound like they're taken straight from Ice and Rollmaster.
It does.
Those are straight up spell schools for
Yeah.
Rollmaster.
But yep. And then you can only cast spells from your school. You can later try to learn them through downtime and training to learn a new school, but you will, like you do when you learn, your skill for it will be much lower than your primary school, and you don't necessarily automatically learn spells. You have to go to learn spells. You have to either get taught them or you have to find them out in the world. There's no automatically I leveled up or anything and I got more spells. It's nope, go adventure or find a teacher.
Yeah, that's
so
I love that.
Yeah. Advancement is done by when you complete an adventure, you ask yourself some questions like, did I take part in the adventure? Did I? I'm trying to find the section where it has that. It has like 5 questions essentially that you ask yourself, and for each of those you get a mark, and for each mark that you have, you can attempt to advance one of your skills. And you do that by trying to roll higher than your skill. So the better you are at certain skills, the harder it is to get better at them. But the lower you are at skills, the easier it is to actually improve that skill.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Did I lay a monster? Yes, I laid a monster. No, slayed a monster. God.
Why do we keep this guy around?
I don't know. I don't even know where that came from. It's just out of left field somewhere.
Yeah. And then you can learn new heroic abilities when you either do something in an adventure or find someone that grants you that ability during adventure. So going out on adventures to get that, or if you max out a skill at 18, and if you want to mark that skill, you get to you can learn a new heroic ability instead of try to improve a skill.
All right.
They do have, so in this they do have crit. They do banes and boons. Boons it being basically advantage, but you can stack it. So if you have 4 boons to the roll, you roll 40-20 and take the best roll.
Oh my god.
If you have the same way, you can stack banes. If you have multiple banes, things that are affecting you in a negative way, you stack those against you. So if you have 3 banes because you're injured, you're in the dark, and you're afraid of the monster, you roll 3d20 and take the worst roll. And then they cancel each other out.
All I can think of is like, did I go out into the world unmasked? Yep. Did I spit in my friend's mouth? Yep. Did I? Did I lick his handrails in his house? Yep. Did I lick the doorknobs? Yep. All right, I got COVID.
All right.
What?
Waples is off his meds.
He must be. I have no idea what the hell he's on about.
Well, I was stacking up my boons.
They have a mechanic of being able to push your rolls, where if you fail in a roll, you can try to do it again. But to roll again, you take a condition, and each attribute has a condition associated with it. You have exhausted for strength, sickly for con, dazed for agility, angry for intelligence, scared for willpower, and disheartened for charisma. And when you have that condition, you have disadvantage or a boon or a bane on all rolls involving that stat for skills and that stat.
Okay.
And then if something would give you a condition that you already have, you choose a different condition and you mark one of those. And so you slowly kind of, as you adventure, you tend to accumulate multiple conditions until you figure out that you need to rest and try to remove a condition or 2.
Joke's on you. I can't get herpes twice.
God damn it.
But
I
starting
think we need to be letting him talk about something. He's just sitting there
Yeah, he
staring
really wants
at
to
the
tell
wall.
something.
yeah, I haven't gotten enough attention for a little while, so I have to act out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just keeping the scary goblins away. If I don't talk for at least 30 seconds in an empty room, the goblins show up and they start biting at my kneecaps.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
Well, have you ever seen a goblin when I was around?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm
All right.
sorry.
Two or
I'll talk
three at
more.
least. So.
Yep. So the core box is pretty great. It comes with both the full rule book. It becomes with a full campaign, like a set of adventures and a set. It's kind of a nice adventure. I think it's set in what they call the Misty Vale, and it is a sort of quasi sandbox adventure. It has like a starting point and an ending point, but it's you have to find these 4 things to combine them to go find this sword, so you can go confront the guy that is also after that sword, but it can kill him. But it kind of lets you set the 4 things wherever you want them to be, and then the adventurers can go about exploring the confines of the Vale as they will, but there's no set order of when they have to do things or where they have to go. There are other factions that are out there doing things, also trying to acquire these pieces. So it even encourages you, is like, hey, if your adventurers don't take the hook, just let them go explore, and they'll eventually, things will happen. Other people will move about and try to acquire things, and they'll either, get their shit together or they won't.
And then when the big bad guy ends up with the sword and conquers the world, well, it's your player's fault.
Yeah, well, they had their chance, and they blew it.
Your blood.
But it's a cool adventure campaign. The box also has a bunch of like thick cardboard punch outs for a bunch of monsters,
always useful.
a full set of dice, and then cards you can give out for use for initiative, cards for treasure, and then just rumor cards that you can give them for things that happen or information that they acquire as part of the campaign. So it's a nice box.
All right, well, you've convinced me. I definitely will have to pick that up next chance I get.
Yeah, I want to play it now. See if somebody's
It's-
running a Gary Con.
It's definitely the game that if I didn't want to run Shadow Dark, this is the game I would run instead of running something like D&D or something more complicated or more crunchy, for sure. So now I have my fantasy games covered, because I got my super fast and low complexity, Shadow Dark, and now I have Dragonbane for my more complex and more crunchy, and that's pretty much all I need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about your comedy tabletop?
I don't know. You got Pyroborg too, guys. Come on.
Well, Pyroborg is a different thing. I like Pyroborg. It's a different kind of game. Would still definitely play some of that.
Yeah, for comedy, there's Bridgetown.
I do like that one of the species or ancestor kin is what they call it in Dragonbane, that is in there is the mallard.
I saw that and hate it.
It is apparently
you hate
in there.
any animal race, so you don't count.
It is apparently
fully
they
true.
are. I don't know where they eventually got there, but it got there through some sort of like popular like home. I don't know, like quite homebrew or kind of joke thing or comic in Sweden, and so they've just had to include it in every Dragonbane sets because it was very popular there for whatever reason. And they are much like Daffy Duck, that the mallard's ability is to get angry.
So it's actually taken from the setting Glorantha, which is in RuneQuest, I think.
Which is from Chaosium's basic.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah. That's where it was taken from.
Yeah, whenever they got it, it was popular enough with people in Sweden that they have included it ever since, because for whatever reason, angry duck people made them laugh.
Must be a Swedish thing. I don't get it.
So it looks like, through a very quick Google search, that the Swedes have a almost cultural tradition of watching Donald Duck cartoons every Christmas Eve.
Ah,
and they have an obsession with Donald Duck. So if you're telling me this is, Swedish development, then yeah, they have Donald Duck because they they have that mallard because they love Donald Duck.
Yeah, that's what I mean. With their arcane ability is they get angry, so they can, they can get a boon on a roll, and they make themselves angry. It is, like I said, that's a cultural thing, and they're like, yep, this is in there because this is our thing. The rest of it are the kind of things you would expect. You have halflings, dwarves, elves, and humans and wolfkin. They all have neat little kin abilities. Your wolf people are good trackers and stuff. The elves are neat is that when they take out one of the rest, they actually can recover more HP and willpower. So they just sort of go into a trance. They go into a trance, which could be detrimental because they cannot be awakened from it for 15 minutes.
Oh
boy,
that's dangerous.
Yeah, it does seem dangerous. There is the detriment, but they recover extra HP and willpower. So humans is the interesting as they have their adaptability works where they can, when they would have to make one kind of skill roll, they can argue why they can use a different skill instead that they're better at. They essentially say, I know you're calling for this, and it says in there it's kind of one of those, hey, you need to make rulings and rules. It's like, let them make the argument. The DM should be lenient, but obviously there's some discretion in there.
Yep, there's that strength intelligence roll.
Yeah, but it could be that thing where, like, okay, I'm trying to make an intimidation roll, and maybe I'm not high in charisma, but if I am a bloody barbarian with a
yep,
that I'm choosing to use my weapon skill or my athletic skill to really make my point through physical presence instead of that.
Yeah, it's Conan spinning his sword around and looking buff and terrifying just to make people run away. It works.
Exactly.
Sometimes, though, when you do it to Indiana Jones, you get shot.
Sometimes when you spin your sword too much, yeah, you just get shot. Yeah, I think it's a great system. They just did a Kickstarter for some more expansions for Magic and for a city book expansion.
All right.
So yeah, they have a bestiary out as well. So a whole bunch more monsters.
Yeah, so DCC Day is coming up July 19th. So I'll probably have to make another trip out just to go find a module somewhere. So I'll probably be able to pick up Dragonbane then. It's more than likely we'll have to drive another hour and a half to the same store that I did the free RPG Day stuff at, and they had copies of it. So, yep. All right. Yeah. So let's move on. I think we wanted to talk about psionics.
Yep.
Yeah, I figured that's why you were talking about Illithid's to start.
That's why we started with Mind Flayers, right?
Right, yeah. You're on to me. No, we wanted to talk at least briefly about the Unearthed Arcana 2025 arcane subclasses.
Ooh, wait, are we seriously not going to talk about our psionics? Because I just want to get this shit done with.
I haven't read about it this week, so we have to save it for next week.
We'll have to put it off again.
Yeah.
All right. I'll start with a positive.
Okay.
The Hexblade is better.
Okay, you'll have to walk us through how, because I have not read the Hexblade stuff because I don't like Hexblades.
The hell you say?
Yeah. The Hexblade actually does stuff now. They have their Hexblade's curse back, which was kind of their thing.
I don't believe you.
What? All right.
I don't believe you. All right. It's not going to make it. It's going to come through. They're only going to be able to use whips and chains and be doms.
I mean, we were working with what is currently written in the Unearthed Arcana. If it doesn't make it to print, that's not our problem.
Yeah, so, no, I just think like they kind of brought it back to the Hexblade's in a weird spot because their whole thing before was that they were the warlock that could use swords with their charisma mod and they could wear armor. But the Pact of the Blade kind of ate the lunch there and gave warlocks the ability to use a weapon with the charisma mod, which is fine because before, when they didn't have that, there was no point in playing a Pact of the Blade warlock unless you were a Hexblade. There was literally no point in any other class doing it. It was just bad.
Yeah.
But so they had to do something else for the Hexblade to kind of still make it that. And whatever the weird thing they did before was just terrible. But now you get your Hexblade curse back where you curse somebody. It's nice because it gives you a curse that is not concentration like Hex Spell, because Hex Spell is not great.
No, it's not.
Like Hunter's Mark, it's just there. It's especially when you have very few spell slots as a low-level warlock. Casting one of them to do a small amount of extra damage if you hit them with an attack is just not a great use for one of your spell slots. One of your maybe 2 spell slots.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel good. It feels clunky.
So you get a Hexblade's Curse, which you can use that isn't a spell, and you can just curse somebody for a minute.
Now, when they die, can you reapply it to somebody else?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they have a thing where if you want to cast another cursing type spell on them as well, you can also apply the Hexblade's Curse as part of that spell casting.
Oh, that's
So
neat.
if you decide to cast Hex or even Bestow Curse or something like that, you can just also apply your Hexblade's Curse as part of the same thing. And then you can alter its duration to either be the 1 minute like the Hexblade's Curse or match whatever spell you cast on them.
A
whichever is
lifetime
longer.
Hexblade curse.
Yeah, exactly. Lifelong Hexblade's Curse forever. So that's all right. It's still all right. The armor of hexes didn't. It's still not great.
No, I
It's
mean,
better than it was. I think it'll make some of the people happy. I still think it suffers from the problem of that you're gonna want to check Pact of the Blade with it. And it's got a weird thing of like where you can get a bonus to your armor if you're not wearing any armor or using a shield, which, okay.
Yeah, are you talking about the accursed shield?
Yeah.
Which isn't, it's while you aren't wearing armor or wielding a shield, you get a +2 bonus to AC while you're within 10 feet of the target cursed by your Hexblade's Curse. Why not
that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense like that you get about like you're gonna want to be close to your target because this is presumably a melee warlock that will
that's
curse
fine.
somebody and get next to them.
That's fine, but you only get 2 armor class for not using armor or shield. Why not just use the armor and shield and get more armor?
Yeah, I know. That's what that's why I feel like that.
This is the somebody jumped me in the middle of the night thing. I'm not geared up. Well, I get something at least.
Yeah, so that's better. The rest of, I don't want to go through all the abilities.
No,
of all
oh god,
these,
no.
There's just a lot. I'll just say, none of these made me. Well, I like the idea of the tattooed monk, of like, hey, this is a monk that has weird magic tattoos and they let you kind of do different things.
So this is the one that I wanted to actually kind of talk about.
Okay,
I hate this one. I really do not like the way they did this one. I love the idea of the tattooed monk, but it's just, you can spend you basically spend focus to just cast spells that exist. You have a crescent moon tattoo. Cool. I spend 2 focus to cast Misty Step. The level 11 one, the level 11 stuff is really bad. You mountain, storm, volcano, or wave. You spend 3 focus to gain resistance to acid, lightning, fire, or cold, depending on which tattoo you had. Oh, and you get advantage on a save or a strength save or dex save. Like there's just no thought or creativity into this class at all.
How much focus points do you get though?
I mean, you're still getting just monk focus points.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like one
I
per
agree
level.
in that the idea was cool and the execution was terrible. That is,
Yes.
I don't like any of what they did with it. I loved the idea. I was like, oh, a tattooed monk. This sounds like it'll be cool, and then it was not.
Yeah, it was the exact opposite. It's just really boring.
And that's kind of the problem with the rest of these. None of these did I look at and go, that makes me want to play a conjurer. That makes me want to play an enchanter. I just went and was like, okay.
Yeah.
There was nothing exciting.
I could be wrong because I don't remember all the 2025 stuff that came up. So this is probably the case with the 4 wizard subclasses they already had. But at level 3, you get the enchanter gets enchantment savant. Choose 2 wizard spells from the enchantment school, each of which must be no higher than level 2, and add them to your spell book for free. Was that already a thing? Or do we?
Yeah, that's always been the
Okay.
thing for a specialist. You just get more of your specialty.
Well, that
free.
wasn't a thing in the 2016 edition. So I must have overlooked it when 2025 came out because I overlooked a lot of stuff in that book.
Yeah, the 2014 one was more the you just
or
time
2014
and
yeah.
gold to get those spells into your spell book, which was great at low level, I guess, but by the time you were, I don't know, 5th level, it didn't matter because you had more money than you knew what to do with.
Yeah.
But yeah, none of these were exciting. None of these made me really go like, oh, they did something really cool with this that made being a transmuter feel cool or made a conjurer feel. In fact, the conjurer didn't even feel like a conjurer. It was mostly teleporting.
Oh, everything gets a teleport pretty much. Like every damn thing.
And
the
those,
monk gets it, the arcane archer gets it, fucking everybody gets it.
Yeah. It just Not that was my impression of this whole thing. None of it was exciting. It all felt very mundane and very, I think the word I used to describe before when we talking was, it felt very safe.
Yes. It feels like the creative people have left the building and the other people who are there might be creative, but they don't have the sway or the swagger when dealing with the suits. So the suits are like, we want boring. Make this safe and palatable for everybody. And that's what happened. That's what they did. And I don't care about any of this at all.
And
No.
I have to say that I'm getting really tired of the thematic release of subclasses. First off, I think it was a huge misstep to not include all of the stock wizard subclasses with
Right out of the gate. Yeah.
Like you got to have your basic schools of magic subclasses. Like why did they not include those first off? And I can go and tell you the reason is, well, they wanted to have the same number of subclasses for each class.
Yes.
Well, that's bullshit. Like it, and it's the same sort of thing. Like you could have included a lot of the Arcana cleric that could have been included in the PHB too. It's basic stuff that has been there since the beginning, like at least since 3rd edition. Like there's certain things that there's just the horror subclass, the Arcana subclass. Like, don't even get me started on some of these other ones. Like,
did you say horror subclass or horror subclass?
It's the same thing.
Do you need to get laid or something, Waples? Like, you've been all up on getting herpes and just making.
I was just saying.
Yeah,
I heard words. I was just trying to clarify for the audience.
Okay.
The wizard thing, honestly, all of these school specialists are so generic and mundane that there was no reason to do 8 different subclasses. Just give me one subclass called the school specialist and do that, because you know what's way more interesting? All the other versions of types of wizard, trying to do other things with wizards than just, I'm an illusionist and I'm a necromancer. Just give me the specialist subclass that covers them all, and you pick your specialty, and you get at a couple of levels you get that, and most of it is just you're really good at your specialty. and then do more interesting thing with wizards.
Yeah.
Yeah, do more interesting things with wizards, like Dragonbane, or literally every other tabletop role-playing game out there.
Yeah, give me the freaking demonologist that's like, I'm going to summon something that might very well turn out to be a very bad idea.
Well, you can't talk about demons. I mean, that's heretical. So can't offend anybody.
Fiend, give me the fiend conjurer who.
Yeah, where my bass to at?
Yeah, there was someone, I don't know if this was a homebrew, somebody did a fiend binder, which was a cool thing where I think it was for 3.5, where you could summon things, but they had a chance of turning on you if either they took too much damage or you did, or and so it was a really cool thing where you could be like, all right, I bound this thing. And some of it was like the early ones, you could just bind something, you attempt to bind something, and maybe you could use some of their power. Like if they had a ability, you could use that ability once, and then when you got higher level, you could summon the whole creature, but there was always the chance that it was going to turn on you.
Yep.
But it made that risk reward play of like, hey guys, I can learn about this thing and I can try to summon this thing. It might go bad. I might just end up summoning more things for us to fight.
Yeah, the demonologist it was a prestige class in one of the 3rd edition books, and that was basically I think you could summon demons a little earlier than the normal wizards. You had access to other stuff like that, but there was always the risk of, oh well, this didn't work out the way I intended.
Yeah, I have lost control and we're all in trouble now.
Yep, I got to learn to bargain with these things better.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the arcane subclasses. We're not really going to go into details on any of this stuff, but there's not really a point in going into it. I think the last thing that we need to talk about is the whole diamond distribution fiasco that's sort of going on right now.
What is the diamond distribution fiasco that's going on right now?
All right. I know, like Chris, you know who Diamond Distribution is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured you did. So Diamond Distribution is the largest book/comic book distributor out there. I don't think it's the case anymore, but for a long time, they distributed all of Marvel Comics product, all of DC Comics, all of Image, pretty much every comic book company out there. That's who their distributor was. And they also distribute a lot of role-playing games, which includes Dungeon Crawl Classics or Goodman Games stuff. I know Paizo, some of their distribution is through them. And Roll for Combat, I think all of their distribution was through them. Apparently, last year, they went belly up. So their company filed for bankruptcy. And most recently, Stephen Glicker from Roll for Combat had posted a video explaining the whole situation of what them at Roll for Combat is currently going through. And it turns out that Diamond is going to sell all of the product that they have on hand, because this is how bankruptcy law works, and then just take all the profits. And you have to think of them as a distributor, kind of like Amazon or something. You know, these companies would have the products made, send them into Diamond. Diamond would then distribute them to all of the different stores. But with Diamond going out of business, they still have all that product on hand. And for larger companies like Paizo, it might hurt, but they'll be fine. Like Diamond might not even been their own distributor. It probably isn't at this point. But smaller companies.
There's 3 major distributors for tabletop role-playing games, Diamond being, I think, the biggest.
Yeah, well, not anymore. They're not going to be. But
right.
Yeah, like I know Roll for Combat. Like Stephen Glicker, he's just pretty well screwed. He's not going to get anything out of all of that product, and who knows how many thousands of books that is.
Well, I think part of it is that they can sue to get the money from the profits that they're going to get from selling all the distribution, but that takes lawyers and time, and there's a good possibility you're only going to get a 10th of the profit that you initially sent out there.
Yeah, I mean, if you spend $10,000 or so on books and you get $1,000 back. Well, that's just not a good deal. Like, I'd be pretty pissed about it, but unfortunately, there's really not a recourse for any of these companies. So
Definitely not one that gets them back all the money that they were hoping to earn.
no.
But I think too that they can also, the companies that are losing the value, they should be insured against that. Pretty much running it all off as lost cargo or something like that. I can't remember what I read in the article a year or so ago, or what I was told. But again, it's still a lengthy process and time that takes money, and you can go belly up.
Things that you intended to sell are not selling because they're gone.
Right.
Yeah.
And Diamond has been known to be a terrible fucking company for decades now.
But the type of terrible company that you have to use because you got nobody else because you're the small guy in the totem pole.
Right. And they were for a long time, like they were the only distributor, especially in the comic books market. So you had no choice.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah, it definitely sucks.
So all that being said, I just want to point out that, like in the video, Stephen Glicker did say that they have some Kickstarters coming up. So if you want to support the small guy, and there's probably a lot of other small guys out there that I'm not even mentioning because I just don't know about them.
The small guys.
But hey, speak up about it because it's just not good.
No, it's not.
Well.
Yeah, hell of a way to bring down the podcast, but we had to talk about it. So,
well, I think Roll for Combat's next Kickstarter is their Shadow Dark monster books.
Yeah.
It's going to be sometime soon here in July. So
I have every intention of backing it because I love Shadow Dark, and those guys, they always do a good job. So.
They do. They do good. They do good monsters. I like a good monster book, so I'm always happy to have more monsters to throw at people.
Especially since you're going to be running some Shadow Dark here soon.
I am very soon going to be running some Shadow Dark. So
hell yeah! I get to start my X-Crawl Classics next weekend.
Yeah,
I'm going to murder so many characters that first adventure.
I don't think that's how you're supposed to go into the game.
I
don't. Waples.
Yeah. See, here's the thing about X-Crawl funnels or DCC funnels. I don't have to go in there trying to do that. It's just going to do it.
It just happens.
Because they have 4 or less hit points. It's just going to happen.
It happens naturally.
Yeah. Once they get to first level, they don't die nearly as quickly. At that point, you have a little bit of saving time before you die.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway. All right. Any last things before we wrap this up?
I do got one last thing. The new I guess the first book for D&D 2024 came out. The first adventure book, Dragon Delves.
Okay.
And essentially it's people have been describing it as like a coffee book that has a lot of like art and history for each of the dragons and the dragon types and whatnot. And it's also an anthology book that has 10 adventures based around dragons. And the one people say is the best one really doesn't have a dragon in it, which I found quite funny. There's one of the adventures is called The Will of Orcus, where you have to basically go through and fight a cult of Orcus occultists.
Yeah, so a bunch of undead probably.
A bunch of undead, a bunch of ogres, a bunch of demons, blah blah blah, and there is a dragon at the end. He's hiding in he's hiding in the statue of Orcus at the very end of it, and like
spoilers.
Spoilers, yeah, but he's the one like whispering to like the leader to try making him believe that he's Orcus talking to him, and that's it. That's the only way a dragon is involved in that adventure, and I found it kind of funny that the best dragon adventure really didn't have a dragon in it.
Yeah, I'm on the D&D store right now looking at it. 10 dragon-themed adventures for characters level 1 through 12.
It is not themed for dragons.
Each set in a different fantasy location with a distinctive dragon lair. It doesn't say it has a dragon, but it does have a dragon lair.
And this is a temple to Orcus. This is not a dragon lair. So I just found that funny.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to buy the book?
Here you did.
Yeah.
You know, he's already got it.
Turns out I already own it somehow. I didn't even try.
Yeah, it's just so weird.
Yep.
That's how it works.
All right. Well, here's my quick last thing on itch.io. There's a YouTuber. Maybe he does other stuff as well. Jordan, the PH is silent.
I've seen him. Yeah.
He does a lot of good YouTube stuff. He has a channel full of D&D stuff with D&D lore on all kinds of different stuff. But he also has another channel where he does lots of DCC. He's a big DCC fan, and other old school type games, Karen and other stuff. But they are hosting on itch.io and what they're calling their Appendix in Jam. And you can submit adventures. What it was, you sign up for this, they will give you a fake book title in the style of an appendix in book. And then you have to create a 4-page adventure based on that title.
Oh man.
And submit it for it and to take place in it. So just a fun little thing to kind of make some pulpy sword and sorcery style fun adventures, and then there'll be a panel of judges. We'll go over them and kind of rate them.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
And yeah, but it's
That's
just
cool
a fun
stuff.
little thing to get people to make old school adventures.
Yeah.
Very cool. Good
Drop
stuff.
a link in the chat.
I will do that.
In fact, Kristian, why don't you tell everyone they can find us, since we didn't do it at the beginning of the podcast yet again.
Or the last podcast. Or...
You can't find us. We're adventurers always on the move. But you can find us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or other places wherever you get your podcast. You can find us on YouTube under Grumpy Dungeon Manders, and there's some there's probably some,
Grumpy Dungeon Manders.
Love that guy.
The goblin's got me. Chris, stop talking.
God, the goblin! Glad the goblins arrived.
There's also social media that we don't use, but so don't go there.
I use it.
No, you don't.
I post all the time of shit on Facebook.
He does on Facebook.
On Facebook
you don't own me.
We're also on Twitch a few times a week, so check us out there.
Yeah, it's twitch.tv/Grumpy Dungeon Masters. Yeah,
not Manders, Masters.
Or Manders.
Manders.
See what you get if you go there. Could be fun.
Listen, it's like a salamander-based podcast. It's fine.
Yeah.
The Grumpy Dungeon Manders.
We should definitely do a.
Oh shit! We're doing the ecology of the salamander next week.
Yeah, there we go.
Man. Word.
You know, I can bring on one of the sponsors, Zippy T. Ertl, and see what happens.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We're out of here. Bye, Craig.
Bye, Craig.